Hello and welcome to my actual living space, my little living room here. I changed up the location because I can today. I haven't directed anything since literally the start of the pandemic. I closed a show, pandemic. That's how it went. So I wanted to offer some of my director's perspective on some of my favorite works on screen and hopefully some stuff on stage. But let's start today with a show that's been fresh on my mind because I just binged it like a month or so ago. And that is The Queen's Gambit. You will see that I do love the show from a fairly recent blog post I did on it as well. It was hard to pick a scene, but the one we're going to watch is Beth Harmon versus Harry Beltic in the Kentucky State Championship. Towards the beginning of the series, I believe episode 2. And there will be spoiler alerts because that's just how it works. So let's jump right into the scene and I'll give some little notes. We'll stop and we'll start. Oh, and just some setup. So Beth Harmon is just starting in her career as a female chess player. She's still a teenager. I believe she lies about her age in the series, but I believe she's still a teenager in this scene. It's just the start of her wins, feeding her obsession of chess, and this is her match against Harry Beltic, who is quite a gifted, well-known state champion in Kentucky. And we're going to watch them play a little game. All right. Okay, one thing I love about the scene, and part of the reason I picked it, is because it doesn't focus nearly as much on what's being said as what's being done and how the story's being conveyed through the physicality. So throughout this, think about how these characters move and how they react to one another without saying words. As we all should know, it's not as much about the dialogue as what happens in between the lines. First of all, we have this great moment of introducing the characters to one another. We have Beth Harmon. She slides right in, full confidence, ready to go, focused. She's not surprised by anything in the situation, whereas we have Harry, who obviously has a piqued interest in the person sitting across from him. We see this from his physical adjustment. He kind of comes off his equilibrium, his center of gravity, to shift, which is not just physical, but emotional, and will dictate where he goes further. As well as his facial expressions, they both do a really great job telling a story with the way their face moves and very little other movement. So yeah, introductions to characters are very important, and when there's no dialogue, the physicality means everything. Okay, that last 2 seconds we're probably going to just watch back because you get a clear distinction of how these two players play. Beth has a very graceful dancer-like way of moving her hands. She'll take one piece and then flip and grab the other one at the same time. It's this very nice fluid motion. Harry is a lot more staccato, if we're putting it in musical terms. And if you listen closely, there's a bit of a drag on his first move. As we know, he's already made a physical adjustment at the beginning of this scene, indicating that this isn't just like every other game he's played, so I believe that drag would be a bit of hesitation here. So the way they play as players is a translation of who they are as people and the thoughts going through their head. So let's just watch that moment one more time. I would really like to analyze to the nth degree, if I could, the importance of background acting. I never like to see when I'm doing a stage production having anybody on stage that isn't completely actively involved in the scene, no matter if they are the forefront of the moment. Because then you get those quick little moments in the background that really emphasize what is going on. We had Harry, who is obviously, if this isn't a look of defeat, I don't know what is. He's broken his eye contact with Beth, something that's an indication of submission. Then we have the flash of the background actors who are pretty statuesque. They're very focused on the scene, adding to that subtle line of tension throughout that really makes movement and any kind of vocalization pop. So when you see Harry look down and then you flash to extras who have been focused on the game turning to one another, that's an emphasis on something new has happened that probably hasn't been seen before. I love Harry's breath right there. There's something about breath that truly is the source of life. All of our emotion comes from our breath. If you ever think about when you're upset about something, you might hold your breath, or your breath gets very rough and shaky. If you're nervous or upset, or you might get a tension in your throat, something we don't actually want as actors, but it's there. The way we breathe indicates how we're feeling on the inside, and the way we breathe is how we'll be propelled into the next moment. Harry obviously is digging into some kind of toolbox, whether it's conscious or subconscious, to get that extra support he needs in that moment. Maybe his brain just needed some room for clear thought. Maybe he needed a moment of hesitation to really think about his next move, and a breath was a good distraction from it. Either way, it's a great moment. Always start from the breath when you are working through a scene. Come back to the breath when you lose control. That is the key element here. Breathe. I tell myself every 5 seconds.
Son of a bitch.
If I were you, I'd go back and watch this scene a couple of times, because now that I have seen it a couple of times, I'm not gonna lie, I'm starting to see this progression of Beth dominating the scene. Oftentimes, someone will establish dominance by holding a strong center of balance. If someone's swaying back and forth or making unnecessary movement, it shows a lack of control. Here, Beth is solid. She is sturdy, she is relaxed, and she knows exactly what she's doing. You will also hear, let's listen in the dialogue coming up, how that is also revealed, the dominant versus submissive, where Harry is going to get into a vocalization that is pretty rushed and pretty all over the place, whereas Beth is calculated. She takes her breaths as she needs them, and she takes her time getting her words out. Think about the rhythm that's fighting each other here, from Beth to Harry.
I think that's it. No, I can get out of this.
I don't think so. Maybe, if you'd gotten here on time. It doesn't work. I don't have to use the queen.
Move.
I'll just cover it with the bishop and...
Move.
Did you hear that in the dialogue? And then Beth does pick up her speed a little bit as an indication that she wants to be somewhat helpful for whatever reason, because know throughout the series she does very much enjoy winning and very much demolishing the men around her. But here she is helping out. What we do also see is where thinking before you speak is very important. It's not just something to think about in life, but when you're creating a scene and creating the detailed moments to fill in between lines, you have to remember that nobody just speaks. There's a thought, there's a reaction, and then you say it. You think, you react to yourself, and then you say it. And then, even further with that, what do you not say with your words that you say with your face? The thoughts you keep inside. Watch the scene over and over again, and you will definitely see plenty of those progressions in the face to indicate the thought has taken place, a reaction, and then speech. Let's go back and see Harry have that thought process.
I think that's it.
No, I can get out of this.
I don't think so. Maybe, if you'd gotten here on time. It doesn't work. I don't have to use the queen.
Move.
I'll just cover it with the bishop and...
Move.
Ooh, I just noticed that the background actors are getting a little off kilter. There's subtle movement starting to erupt as we get to the end of the game, which is building more and more of that tension until I would assume the release is the end of the game. And quickly, I'd like to say eye contact is very important in close up imaging like this, close up acting. I'd like to know as a director, I'd want my actors to think about, why do I look up? Why do I look down? There should always be purpose behind it. I believe that they have full purpose in where their eye is moving. But that's definitely something I'd want to talk about early on in working a scene is if you're going to put your eyes down, there should be a reason, as well as if you're going to bring your eyes up and look at your opponent.
Do you see it now? Or should we finish this on the board?
Now we have this very positive reaction from Harry, which I think is very refreshing, and I think it plays to his character in a positive light. Seeing as, spoiler alert, he will be coming back later on in the series, I think it was important to see him as a positive character as opposed to any kind of villain-ish character. That's a strong word for it, but just so we paint him in a positive light so people can cheer for him later on down the road, it's important to think of that kind of character building, where we're building up to for this character, where they need to be eventually, and making sure that we're taking the steps to get there. So it shows you here that Harry enjoys the game, but obviously there is a strong difference between the way he enjoys the game versus how Beth enjoys the game. And this also may speak to how she will develop in her view of her male counterparts throughout. Maybe not painting them in such a negative light as this could have been had the reactions been different.
Son of a bitch.
And I love that little moment where you see that she obviously enjoys the win and enjoys having this community around her, but something inside of her does not want to show her cards. She has that little bit of a smile, but just when she thinks someone might be noticing it, pulls it back, as well as she is cut off in her singular moment by Harry's outstretched hand. And that's about the scene. I hope I didn't talk for too long. I always have plenty to say. If there's some specific scene, show, musical, play that you want me to take a clip from and do some psychoanalyzing on it, I'd be more than happy. I will continue to make these shows that I enjoy, whether stage or television. I hope everyone has a lovely evening. It is night here, so I will say goodnight to you all. Here the video ends and the work begins. Let's support each other.